Okay. Hello and welcome today. My name is Brianna, and as my handle states, I am also known as the Recovered Republican. I am now a leftist and champion progressive ideals in Indiana. On today's show, we are going to talk about Indiana's foster care system and its struggles, including the impact of no more childcare vouchers for at least the next 2 years. Today, I will be speaking with Kristie Holder. She is a foster care mom veteran and a behavioral health retired healthcare worker. Welcome, Kristie. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, Bree.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it when people take time out of their busy schedules to talk to me. But before we dig into the meat of the subject, why don't you just explain your work background and your foster care background?
Work background, I've pretty much been in healthcare about 20 years off and on, working anywhere from CNA to medical assistant, psychiatric tech. Also did daycare for a while and then stepped away from it to do foster care.
Amazing. How many children have you fostered?
Um, Roughly around 10 plus.
Oh, wow. And are those of all ages or were you getting
Oh, yeah.
infants? All
Um,
ages.
all ages, all the way up to probably 14, 15 years old.
Okay. And your husband used to work for DCS, is that correct?
Correct. He was a paralegal.
Okay, wonderful.
Mhm.
And you have a child that you fostered and you have now adopted, is that correct?
Yes.
How old is that child now?
He's 3 years old now.
Oh, I bet he is so much fun, but so much work.
Oh, yes, he is. But a joy, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So when we're talking about the foster system, you and I were talking about there's a difference between fostering through an agency and a fostering through DCS. Can you explain what it means to foster through an agency for us?
So, through an agency, pretty much you are going with another company besides DCS that actually works with you hand on hand. They help with any paperwork that technically DCS would have you do yourself when you're with them. They actually offer more support in an aspect of, rather when it has to do with the kids or with you yourself. Um, and overall, they're just a good community right there of helping. And, not to get into the pay or anything like that, but it's different versus DCS. Just a lot of different things and their training hours. And when it comes to the day in life of, with the kids is completely different from DCS.
Okay. When we were talking, you were saying that when you're with an agency, they are more likely to come see the child, make sure everything's going okay, not necessarily coming in for negative reasons, but just coming in to set eyes on the child as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, Go ahead.
I was going to say agencies, yeah, they, depending on a CAN score, they will come in rather 1 to 2 times a week, or it could be every 2 weeks or once a month versus DCS. They are supposed to lay eyes on you once a month, well, on the children once a month. So that's the difference between that.
Okay. And so it sounds like there might be a lot more work involved with going through DCS. Is that an accurate statement?
See, I've heard mixed reviews from other foster parents and everything, especially when Derek and I were joining, trying to become foster parents. We were trying to weigh out the pros and the cons, and honestly, agency, it was more pros than cons, and
Yeah.
then
So
vice versa with DCS.
yeah, what were some of those pros and what were some of the cons for DCS? Do you recall?
I mean, so pros, yeah, you're able to get the children quicker, especially when they're being pulled from their situation, you're able to get them, you're the first call for DCS. I know a lot of foster parents, not a lot, I don't want to be that type of person, but the ones that want the younger ones, the babies and stuff, they go through DCS. It's very rare to get them through an agency. Agency, that's more of the medical fragile babies. And with agency, it's also other children that just were not placed in homes. Or if they are long term, then they go into a different home.
Okay. So when a child ends up in an agency, typically they have a higher CAN score.
Yes.
Okay. So the way that it kind of works, it sounds like DCS kind of goes through and tries to place everybody, and if they can't, they go to the agencies.
Right.
Okay.
They'll pretty much go into the placement line. Like I know in the last couple of years, they've been completely overwhelmed with not having enough foster parents and everything, rather through DCS or through agency. And they're pretty much trying to figure out where they're going to place the children. But with DCS, from my eyes, from my experience of seeing, is, the babies and the ones that are, first coming, into DCS and everything, into protection service, they go through DCS first before agencies.
Okay. So what can you explain a little bit about what the CAN is? Because I'm sure people don't really know what that is.
The CANs, pretty much it's an assessment of the child. For like CANs 1 is they have no medical needs. They are pretty much a normal, child that just needs to be watched. Then you have the 2, 3, and 4. It escalates on behavior, what their medical needs are. I believe CANs 4 is one of the highest, and that's like medical, I believe.
Yeah,
Where they need G-tube, wheelchairs, and everything else.
Yeah, the way the state classifies it is therapeutic plus is the
Yeah.
highest level.
Yeah, and I believe that goes all the way up to 7. I think
Really?
7 is more of residential.
Okay. Interesting. Huh. Yeah, it seems like this whole system is very confusing and it's not very transparent. Is that kind of what you experienced?
Yep, all the time.
Okay.
And they're always coming out with new rules and everything else. So it's kind of hard to keep up with it. And then, of course, you have your FCMs that you're trying to get clarification with, and sometimes they don't even know what's going on.
That's awful. And I'm sure that the people who are suffering are the children.
Exactly.
That's awful. Well, let's talk about some of the other problems that are in the foster care system here in Indiana. What is the biggest issue you want people to know about going on in Indiana's foster system?
Pretty much the foster parents not being heard. They're being dismissed. That's one of the biggest problems. People might fight me on that one, but it's the truth. Others is, the lack of the workers. It's a revolving door. So you never know what worker you're going to have. So that way it's consistent, especially with the children in place with you.
Yeah. So when you say foster parents aren't being heard, can you explain what you mean by that? What, or give an example or a hypothetical of when that might have happened?
Like for example, if a child is deeply needing services and you are pleading to the FCM and even to the whole team that they're needing services, sometimes it gets ignored and they just don't listen.
And when you say they need services, do you mean first step services? Do you mean services beyond first steps?
It could be first steps. It could be a nutritionist, a therapist. It could be anything that you're literally sitting there telling them, hey, this is what I think the child needs. We're working with this child. It's not helping. We need better avenues for this. And they have to understand, us foster parents, we're with the child nonstop. We are the ones that are taking care of the children while their parents are, taking care of themselves so they can get their child back.
Right. And when you say that they aren't listening to the foster parents, is it just that they don't end up receiving the services, or is it more to it?
See, it's like a 50-50. It's rather some of them do it, or it's rather being swept under the rug, or they're just not wanting to do it and just be lazy and pass it off or just ignore it.
And you mentioned before that sometimes you were even seeing some of these kids when someone would report that they needed more support, they would remove the child from that foster parent's home.
Right.
Why do you think they did that?
Make their job easier so that way they don't have to handle all the paperwork and everything else with it. That's what my thought is. I've had an incident like that happen. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's heart-wrenching.
Yeah, it almost sounds, yeah. How could you not get attached?
Right.
So to me, it almost seems like if they're taking the child out of the home, when you were saying, hey, this child needs more support, that feels like they are blaming the foster parents for this child's issue. They're saying, because if you're just removing the child from the home, that means that they think that that problem is stemming from the home.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like that, and sometimes foster parents do feel like it. Here it is, the state put us through rigorous of checking into our lives, even back to when we're teenagers and everything, doing a full checkup, and they're entrusting us with the children, but they're making us feel like we're just babysitters. Like, okay, just watch the child. That's how I
Don't
feel.
rock the boat. Yeah.
Do I?
Don't rock the boat.
Right. So
the other thing that I thought was really interesting that when I talked to you was that sometimes it seems like they're pushing some foster parents to adopt some of these children very quickly.
mm-hmm. Yep, because they need a plan.
They need a plan.
Yep.
But wouldn't it make more sense to have some sort of protocol of like how long a child needs to be in a home before they decide if this is a good fit, if it's like going to be a place where the child is going to thrive, even maybe it's not a good fit for the child. You had mentioned to me that someone had tried to encourage you to adopt one of your foster children after they'd only been in your home for 60 days.
Yeah, and technically the child is supposed to be in your home for 6 months before an adoption can even happen. They also have the 15 out of 22 months where they're supposed to be in the foster system that long before TPR and anything like that can happen. But it's just crazy how you have a child in your home for that short of a time and you're already being asked, hey, would you like to adopt this child? How about we wait on that? Let's figure out if we're a good fit and everything else, and let's see if that case is actually going that direction versus jumping the gun.
Yeah. So do you feel like it's them being pressured just to have like a plan in place and they're just trying to do it too early, or is this when they're supposed to do it?
Feels like it's being rushed. Um, they're rushing it, and it possibly could be to where they're trying to hurry up and close the case, which you're seeing a lot of that.
And why do you think that's happening?
Honestly, again, it'll have to go back to the whole DCS, being understaffed, underfunded. They're getting too many caseloads, and they're just swamped.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that they've been chronically underfunded for so long. It's really hard to catch up when you're already underwater.
Mm-hmm.
So, when we're talking about the chronically underfunded, Indiana just recently announced that there's going to be zero new child care vouchers given out for at least the next 2 years, which from my understanding, a lot of foster parents use the child care voucher in order to be able to afford to be a foster parent. Will will foster parents be able to pay for daycare with the money that they're getting reimbursed through the state? Is that realistic? Or are they going to be worse off because they don't have these vouchers anymore?
Honestly, I think they're going to be worse off. So realistically, you know, um, a two-income home is what you have to have in order. Pretty much is what you have to have, to be a foster parent. Um, when it's to adults and everything. Um, and the CCDF is actually helping and everything um, with being able to put the kids in, daycare and everything else. If they were to pay out of pocket and not have CCDF, and they're only using their per diem, that's not covering it at all. It's too low. Their per diem is, and daycare now is way too much. You got daycares that are charging anywhere from $180 to, I've seen close to $300 a week. And for a single child in foster care, depending on age, you're looking at a range of possibly up to $400 to $800.
Oh, oh
Yeah,
no,
so
where did you go?
you went away.
I know. Hold on. I don't know what's going on. Technical difficulties. Can you still hear me?
I can.
Okay, there we go. I'm back. Sorry about that.
It happens.
All right, where were we? We were talking about per diem.
Yeah.
So, for people who don't know, per diem is the amount you get per day for a child you are caring for from the foster system. Yes?
Yep.
Okay. And in Indiana, I pulled up the per diem through child services. And for the baseline, what I found really, really interesting about this is you get paid less money per day for younger children. I would have thought it would have been the opposite.
You would think, with the diapers, formula, and everything else, which WIC covers the formula, but for all the things you need for a baby, a toddler, yeah, you would think it'd be
Yeah.
higher.
Yeah, because I was doing the math. So the lowest level of just like foster care from birth to 4 years old, it's 27 $8.01 a day, and it equals out to be like 100 or 810 something. But even in Indy, like the lowest I've ever heard of somebody getting daycare for is $200 a week. And that's still $800. So I'm like, so you have $10 left over for diapers? Like
Right.
I just don't see how this is sustainable.
It's not. It's not at all. But you got to think about gas and everything to get them to and from daycare, doctor's appointments, visitation. If they don't have a visitation supervisor coming to pick them up.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So,
So so you are they supposed to have a caseworker that takes them from like their visitations with their parents?
every situation is different on that aspect. I've seen where foster parents have actually drove to do the drop off and the pickup with the visitation supervisor. I've seen where they've come to the home to do the pickup and drop off or do a meet halfway, depending on
Hmm,
location.
interesting. Okay. So I with the low staffing though, are there just times that there's just no one available?
Um, Again, it's every situation's different on that aspect. Visitation supervisors, though, they are actually contracted through a different company or companies that DCS contracts.
Okay.
So it's
Well,
not through them.
that's interesting. I did not realize that. The other reimbursement thing that I wanted to talk about is that if you're related to the child, the reimbursement is a lot lower.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I believe a couple of years ago they introduced, I think it was $300 for kinship. That's for anybody that is considered a family member or a family friend that the parents have chose for the kids to go to. Of course, they have to go through the process of if it's a safe home or not for them. Um, but last I checked, it was like $300 a month.
Yeah, I that's kind of what I found on the internet as well when I was looking at that. And without vouchers, I'm just like, that's nothing. Like I
Right,
just I am just sitting here thinking, how does anyone afford to suddenly take on this child unless they are just independently wealthy and well off?
right. And I mean, like, for instance, I know agencies, I know DCS would probably, tell the kinship, hey, it'd be best if you got licensed. And most of the time they will fast track them to where they only take those children. So that way they can get paid the stipend, get all the benefits.
So they can get all the benefits if they get licensed.
Yep.
Okay. So what all does licensing entail?
I don't know what your thing. So pretty much it's doing a complete background of your life, your work, your medical. They're doing financial look as well. Um, they're doing, of course, the CPS background check, the federal background check. I mean, they're pretty much combing through everything. They do home checks as well, just to make sure the home is safe.
How vigorous are these home checks? Like, do they have a checklist? What does it involve?
Oh yeah, it has a home check. It has a list where it has to make sure you have all the safety precautions for like any like knives, guns. Make sure they're put up properly. Um, Making sure you have smoke detectors, fire extinguishers. Making sure like if there's a pool that it has like a gate or something around it or the proper cover for it. Um, Also, if there's like if you live out in the country or something, if there's a lake, making sure that there's a fence between it, checking if you have animals, if they're all up to date on shots, um, checking to make sure like your vehicle and everything is registered, everything's up to date. They do run background checks on your children too. So if you have,
Interesting.
yeah, if you have children in the home, so anybody that's in the home, they're getting checked.
I find this so fascinating because you just listed a lot of things that sound like quite a big financial investment before you're even licensed.
In which they do help provide some of the money for it or reimbursement.
Is there a limit to that?
That I'm not sure of. So
Okay. Uh, Just a question because I was just like getting those safety equipments, getting a fence.
yeah,
That's a huge investment. That could be easily $10,000.
right. So and also you can't forget fingerprints and all that stuff. So
Oh yes, that's not cheap either.
right,
So and I also find it interesting because I mean, if you're having a child, you don't have to go through that.
right.
So is that part of the problem? Is it that parent is that why our foster system is so overrun and underfunded and understaffed? Is it lack of education for parents or potential parents?
Part of that as well is an issue.
Are there is it a lot of different things? What do you think are the biggest issues of why our foster system just isn't working other than non-funding?
Non funding. Also the revolving door of FCMs. That's a big one because you have these kids in your home for 6 months to a year or more, and if they're constantly getting new FCMs, then they're already having it as bad, in their own life, and having to trust or not even be able to trust this person coming in that's supposed to be helping them to rather get reunified or if it has to go the other way. That's one of the biggest issues is the turnaround of how they're just not keeping staff.
Is that playing into some people getting reunified maybe too early, or maybe they shouldn't be reunified? I'm
I,
just curious if we're having a revolving door, there has to be things falling through the crack.
oh yeah, they're falling through the crack horribly. I mean, horribly. So yeah, you have these FCMs that are coming in, and they don't know the entire case. They don't know what's going on. And you have that one FCM that comes in, and you don't know if that child has been severely abused by one of the parents or whatnot. And they're thinking, okay, well, this parent's doing what they quasi need to do. They show up once in a blue moon. Let's go ahead and do a trial home visit. And I mean, trial home visits, yeah, it could rather go great or it's going to go sour. And then, of course, they want to move it quicker to reunification.
Probably because they're trying to lessen that load any way they
Yep,
can.
exactly.
It just seems like this is such like a multi-level issue where
Hmm.
it's funding and parental education and you know I just find it so fascinating that we have such a high level of expectation for foster families, but yet if it's your biological kid, there is zero expectation, it seems.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of expectations with foster parents. And, it makes you feel like you're the one who's being, targeted in a sense. Like you're the one who's put on trial. And it's like, no, no, no. We are the ones who are helping. We're helping to keep the children safe until it's time for them to go back if it happens.
But it shouldn't be forced if
Right.
it's not. I've heard a lot of foster parents talk about feeling like the parent was given extra shots based on how the laws are written. Is this
Mhm.
something you hear from foster families or something you maybe experience?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I've seen it and I've talked to other foster parents where it seems like, like for instance, if a parent doesn't do visitations like they're supposed to, or do their classes like they're supposed to, but right before court, happens, oh, automatically here comes some, parent, oh, I want visitations. I want this, I want that. And of course, FCM, they bend and let them go ahead with it to allow more time. Again, I'm all about reunification for the right reasons.
And I know that you said that when reunification happens too quickly, sometimes it ends badly for the child.
Hmm. Yep. Sometimes it happens, ends up being death. You're seeing it all over the news. A child is reunified with a parent, and within a couple weeks to a couple months, you're hearing about them, being killed. People are, trying to tell DCS, hey, this child needs to be looked into, da da da. And it's whether they're looking or they're not looking. They're either taking it serious or they're not taking it serious. And when it comes to a child, it needs to be serious.
I You were mentioning a statistic that like more deaths happen after reunification than any other time in the foster care process.
Um, I know a while back, we were getting notes, emails showing data of children actually, you know, being hurt or being killed who have died while, after being reunified or even before they were brought into the system because everything happened too late or whatnot.
I- Is that the same report that you were talking about that was like DCS sends all foster parents a death report?
Yeah,
Like, and tell me about that. Who is on that list? What does that list entail?
it just, from what I remember, when I first got it, was it just showed the data of, the age of the child, the race, demographics of, the child, and pretty much what the situation was that led to it, whether they were reunified or it was before it happened, before they were taken from the home. And it was just showing the numbers of how many deaths were happening. And like I was talking to my husband, I was like, I get why they're sending it to us, just to, so that way it shows us what's really going on in this world. But at the same time, this should be going, to the legislative, having laws put in for this. They need to do something.
Yeah, I just don't see the point other than trying to keep foster parents to continue fostering. Why they would send that to foster parents? Like you're saying, it makes sense to send it to legislature
Hmm.
and try to correct some of these problems.
Right.
But I'm not exactly sure what the purpose of sending this to the foster parents is.
No idea.
Do they
That
do they tell you any reason?
never questioned. So it's like you see it and you're like, okay. Well, and of course, me and my husband, we discuss it and we're sitting here like, what can we do as foster parents in regards to this? So,
Yeah. Well, I think that brings us to the question like what can normal people who aren't foster parents do about this? Like what can we like I'm not a foster parent, but what can I do to help?
I mean, if you're wanting to help, obviously, foster parents are always looking for respite, for just somebody to take the kiddo for a couple hours, a couple, overnight or whatnot. You can always contact an agency to get licensed just to be a respite parent, and that actually helps a lot. I know there's other foster closets donating. There's other charities that actually help with foster care, and you can do it that way. Getting involved as a CASA through your county would be able to help as well.
Can
To
you
be
explain
able,
what a CASA is for people who don't know?
CASAs are pretty much another set of eyes for the courts. They go and see the children, interact with the children, update. They'll update the attorney, let them know what's going on. They also are involved in like the team meetings with everybody, just all around. They're considered part of your support group.
Awesome. Okay. So when you say like foster closets, you mean you can donate clothes, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Clothes. You should be able to do clothes, like cribs, anything for like babies. All you have to do is give them a call, and they should let you know exactly what is needed.
Oh, I bet that's honestly like that's probably a great thing for people who have kids that are getting off of like G tubes to do as
Yeah.
well. Actually, now that you're saying that, I will remember this for the future. Um, but you are also starting something new and exciting. Tell me about what your new project is.
Um, Pretty much, I am starting a podcast with my husband. He actually has Hold Him Accountable, and I am pretty much running off of it as my own side of. Hold on one second. Of Hold Him Accountable, Breaking the Silence. Sorry, just made the name. I've been trying to figure out what kind of name I wanted to do with it because it's been on my mind for a year. I was always considered the big mouth in foster care through my agency because I don't know when to stop. But yeah, Hold Them Accountable, Breaking the Silence. It's pretty much, I'm wanting to give foster parents a voice. A lot of them, they cannot talk at all. They cannot voice their opinions because they're afraid of repercussions of, having a child taken away or, something. And
Yeah.
that's why, pretty much I had to wait until our license ended so that way I could get this going because I didn't want to, have them come after me or anything. But I just want to be the voice of the foster parents and also the foster kids. You have them aging out as well. You have ones that are teenagers and they need to be able to speak.
I would love to hear some people who have been through the foster system on your podcast. That would be very interesting, I think.
I'm not doing it just in Indiana too. I'm going throughout the United States.
I
I've
love it.
actually met quite a few foster kiddos that aged out throughout the states.
That I think their stories could be very powerful. I
Mm,
think this is why I wanted to do this because I think that the foster care system is so it's people nobody talks about it ever and its
right,
problems. You never hear it talked about until somebody dies. And I'm like, it's too late at that point.
right. Yeah,
We
exactly.
Yeah, we need to be talking about it now. It's a problem. I know in Indy where I live, there are always signs that they're like become a foster parent. But I think that the real problem is people can't afford to have children, even foster children right now, especially with the vouchers going away.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, with the vouchers going away and it being held off to what, 2027? Um,
20,
is
I
it
thought it was 2028 they were going to revisit it.
I thought it was 2027 from what I
Maybe it
read.
is.
It changes all the time. So, because I even
Oh,
heard
yes.
2026 at one time, but it's like with that, it's making it really, really hard, especially with, the babies and the toddlers and everything else, because you got parents or foster parents that are going to have to either quit their job or, switch shifts or just find a different job. It's crazy. And the kids are not able to get into a foster home. They're having to sleep in the office or go into a shelter. And then you also have other homes, for emergency placement that will only keep a child for, 24 hours to a week, but then they have to go.
Mm.
So it's
So
going to
they're
be really
probably
hard.
just hopping people around
And
constantly.
and that's not good for the child at all.
No, of
So,
course not. Can you imagine like what their attachment must be like or lack thereof from being moved so frequently?
right, the attachment issues and trust issues and everything else.
I just feel so horrible for these children and because so many of them have seen horrific things
Hmm.
and have been treated horribly. And it's like they're a kid. They didn't choose to be here. Like why is it so hard for people to be like it's a kid, they deserve food, they deserve shelter, they deserve love
Stability.
and stability.
That's
Yeah,
the big
it's
one. Stability.
and then people want to complain about people not being productive citizens. It's like I'm sorry, if that was your upbringing, I don't know how you're going to be a productive citizen.
Right.
That's so much trauma at such a young age. I just don't even that's it is just so heartbreaking because like how can you grow up to trust anything in life?
Right. And especially, with the kids that are aging out and everything, and they've been in a home but were never adopted and everything. You got them that are, some of them, they go out to the world doing great things. And then you got the others that were following their parents' footsteps. So it's all about stability. I mean, if they're able to stay in one home, let them stay. If a foster parent is asking for help and getting referrals and everything, help them, because at least it's keeping the child stable at a home and being cared for and loved.
Yeah, I think that we really need to push the legislature, especially in Indiana for sure, to make some policies and laws that create more stability for these kids.
Yeah. And them redistricting the whole state, I'm fanned by it, because that right there just seems like the FCMs have more of a caseload now, and everything's going to go through, crack and all that other jazz. It's just, it's not good.
No, it's not. So it sounds like if people want to help to sign up to be a respite parent, donate clothes. I've heard donating suitcases as well is helpful
Yeah, suitcases, backpacks, because a
for
lot
their
of these kids,
families.
yeah, they carry trash bags or, grocery bags. So they really don't have nothing.
Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking about getting rid of a bunch of suitcases because I was getting some new ones, but I was just thinking about this conversation, thinking I should take those to a foster house or somewhere so that
Yeah,
they can be used in the foster system. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just older.
right. And a child will love it no matter what, because they're able to put their things in it and call it theirs.
Yeah, I am happy to give that to a child. They can have it.
Yeah.
Um, but is there anywhere people can find you yet? Should they go follow, hold them accountable if they're interested in following you for your podcast?
Yes, as of right now, they can go follow my husband's podcast, Hold Him Accountable. Come January, that's when I'll be launching my podcast. So,
I am so excited for that. Well, that is all the questions I have for you tonight.
all right.
Thank you so much for coming on. It has been very enlightening, and I am so happy to get this information out to more people.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, you have a wonderful night, and we will talk again soon, I'm
All
sure.
right. Sounds good. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.